So what are your theatrics like? Because I don't see a robe or anything like that.
That's still an element of this particular act that I'm developing. Because as you know, like the Glowing Stars, we've worn matching outfits for the entire life of the band, and I find it really important to have a consistent look for acts, because I think that it helps tell the story, whatever the story. Like if you're on stage performing, you're telling a story, and how you dress and how everything looks helps to tell that.
So it's almost like in cartoons, like the main characters are always wearing the same thing no matter when you see them.
So it's really important to me that it be obvious that things are. I almost want to look like a one-man traveling theater. So I've got which right now really just means I've got the burlap amp, the tweed cabinet covered. It's actually burlap.
Oh.
I built that cover for the amp because I actually got it with nothing, and no speakers or anything in it.
You got to put some hobo stamps on it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the next step.
Yeah, I'm slowly working myself towards a consistent thing, but this version of this project is still very nascent.
All right. Well, so you had the Doom Folk going, you had it down, and then you decided to bring in the Game Boys. Now, where did you get this interest in using Game Boys? Like, what was your first experience?
Someone introduced LSDJ, the Game Boy sequencer software that a lot of people use, to me when it was pretty new. I had a cartridge that had version 1.2 on it, I think, that I actually got from the creator, and I used it for a while. This was in 2001, maybe 2001, and I fell in love with it, but I started doing other things. I did a few songs on it. I still have my first chiptune somewhere, my first LSDJ somewhere, but and I used it as a backing track for a song that I performed for a while using a circuit bent Child's Toy. But then it kind of dropped off to the side for me for a while. And then after I joined a punk band called Sputterdoll and met Lizzie. And when we decided we wanted to do something video game related, I pulled the LSDJ cartridge out of the closet and said, "Oh, hey, why don't we try this? Like I haven't done this in a while." But when I sat down and looked at it again, it all clicked in ways that it hadn't clicked the first time, and I've become really passionate about it.
Nice. So it all just kind of congealed at the perfect moment, like it just appeared in front of you, like it had never had done before. Wow, that's crazy. So, like, what is LSDJ? I guess would be a good question to ask, just in case people aren't familiar with it that are watching.
So the Game Boy has a 4-channel synthesizer built into it. All of the music that you hear and the sound effects when you're playing a game is generated live by the game. What LSDJ allows you to do, and once you install it on a flash cartridge and you put the flash cartridge in the Game Boy, it allows you to harness all 4 of those channels and program your own music from scratch into the Game Boy. So there's no, you're not using samples of video game music, you're not using recordings that are edited. You're making your own music from scratch. You have to design the sounds every single time. For every song, you have to make new patches, essentially. And LSDJ gives you a visual interface on the Game Boy that you actually interact with through the Game Boy buttons to program the music.
Man. So how time-consuming is that? How meticulous do you have to be in order to work with these things?
It depends on how deep you want to get into it. Some songs, I've had equivalent songs take as little as a few hours and as much as half a day or longer to put together.
Just the programming aspect, not even creating the song itself.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes creating the song is part of the programming. Sometimes you sit down and you start filling with an idea, and then the music starts to come out of that. Or sometimes you have a song ahead of time that you want to put into this format. But either way, yeah, it can take a pretty wide variety of time. It just depends on how. A big part of it is getting comfortable with the interface.
Nice.
Because the interface can be a big
pain in the ass. It's intimidating. Yeah, I imagine having to work with something where you're like doing every single noise that's coming out of it, and you have to program each one
Well,
to get a little meticulous.
Well, and if you're used to sitting down at a computer where you have a keyboard and a mouse and an MPC controller and a big keyboard and all this stuff and all these different input and output devices, and then there's a bunch of samples given to you off the bat, and you can work with those samples but here you have to do everything from scratch, and you have very little input ability. Yeah, it's a huge shift. It can be a huge shift.
Yeah, this is sounding intimidating to me.
Yeah, well, it's worth it. Like when you get to the end and you can press start on this thing and it plays back like all of this work that you've put in. It's rewarding.
Worth it.
It's really rewarding.
There you go. It's like seeing your child walk for the first time.
Yeah, exactly.